hear that thing bounce off the bottom, you got about 1.170.
Just blast all 4 bolts out. You can take a vacuum tester and test each valve. It's the lip seal off the side of it and destroys the piston. All right guys, back at the bench again. We have a 6L80 out of a 2016 Tahoe that we are going to be tearing apart and getting built. This thing's been sitting in the core pile for a while, as you can tell by the amount of corrosion on top. So we're gonna take it apart, see what we got. You guys that are wondering, that is not good.
Yeah, we are also on TikTok right now. If you guys were curious who he was talking to.
Gross. Let's take this thing the rest of the way apart here. Give me my connector.
Good thing we weren't timing this.
Alright, we'll start taking the guts out. O-ring out of here. Pliers.
There we go.
See what we got inside of this turkey.
Clutches are not in bad shape.
Go ahead and pop this piston out. This piston is something that we actually deal a lot with, and this is why I'm focusing on getting this one snap ring out to show you guys here. This is an area that can really bite somebody in the butt. Something that I've seen a lot of lately will be metal intrusion into this cavity. You'll notice that, you guys probably can't see it. Oh, there we go. You'll notice all the metal right there on the piston. That metal actually will cause a deterioration in the bonded lip there. And it'll actually eat the inside liner of this drum. See the amount of metal that is just coming right out of the drum. So if you guys are building one of these things and you are getting weird PO 751 codes or 2nd gear problems, 6th gear problems, this is an area that is really of concern. So whenever you're rebuilding it, you need to take a lot of time and focus on this drum to make sure that that is sealing the way it's supposed to. Another thing that I've been seeing a lot of here lately is actually low sprag failure. When these things first came out, we didn't have a lot of issues in the low sprag. Over the last couple of years though, I've been seeing a lot of them where the low sprag will actually eat into the outside race and cause a lot of really weird random problems. But the biggest problem with low sprag failure is it will not take off and drive, and you will actually have to manually shift it. So we'll get this one apart and see what condition it's in. This is an area that a lot of guys have a lot of trouble. If you are taking this apart, whatever you push down on this race with has to be the right size. If you put something on there that is too big and you go out here on the snap ring or on the race itself, you'll actually damage the sprag. So pay a lot of attention whenever you're pressing on that. For you guys that are curious of what tool that is actually a clutch buddy from ATEC Trans Tool, or not from Trans Tool, from Adapticase. Get this snap ring off here and we'll check our sprag. Grab my other pliers. I don't know why I grabbed those ones. Alright, let's get this snap ring off. If I can get my pliers to work, I'd be doing way better. I'm eventually going to get that thing off of there. There we go. That one can be kind of a little bit of a pain sometimes. So, get this sprag out of here. The direction of rotation is like so. One thing you can do without actually disassembling the sprag is actually feel for a catching while the sprag is rotating. If you feel any amount of catch or any amount of skipping in the outside gear while you're holding the inside gear, the sprag is failing and you need to replace it. So this center support has two different pistons. You've got your low clutch and your 2.6. Same thing goes for the low clutch as it went on the other side. You need to check to make sure that any metal that's got in there has not actually damaged that aluminum surface. So this one actually appears to be in pretty good shape. We'll get it cleaned up and see what we got. But next on our list, I'm gonna move some of this stuff out of the way. Another thing that I don't feel gets enough attention in the 6L80, and this is something that I've been talking with a lot of other builders and a lot of other transmission industry individuals, is the bushings that actually go in this drum. These two bushings really dictate how this rides in the bottom of the planetary and how the 456 hub rides in the bottom of the planetary. The 456 hub is a high failure item as it is. Doesn't need any help wearing inside of the planetary or wearing on the end of the eyelet where it goes into the input shaft. So we'll get this stuff out of our way and take the rest of it apart. Gonna get our 456 clutch apart, get our planetary off, get our snap ring out. This is another area that has a lot of issues in the 4L, or in the 4L, in the 6L80 family. These ones you can obviously see have been hot and starting to have issues. So if you are building one of these things, you've got a couple of different options right here. Get this piston out and we'll talk about it. Drain some of that oil out of there. This piston gets blamed a lot. A lot of guys think that the only reason that this transmission has 4, 5, 6 clutch failure is that this piston is not adequate for this drum. So the theory right now is that because of the diameter of the piston and the diameter of the steel, that the piston not having enough surface area causes the clutches and steels to cone and burn. Sonax makes a piston for this that has a billet plate that you put on top of the 4, 5, 6 piston that actually creates a flat surface for this piston to travel up and down and move the cushion steel or bottom steel in the pack. So if you're building one, you want to put a little bit of power to it, I recommend putting the Sonax piston in it. I don't do that on every rebuild, but a lot of them we do it. So get that drum side out of our way. Get our 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 5 backwards guy here. We're actually going to be doing a build video on this transmission tomorrow. And it's gonna be a lot of fun. One thing we're gonna talk about in that build video is the location of this snap ring. You guys noticed that I positioned this drum in a certain location to pop snap ring out. It's because of orientation. I like to put this one slot at the top whenever I pull my snap ring out and whenever I put it back in. It's a mental thing that I do. Reason for that is you'll notice that that snap ring cannot actually travel all the way around the circumference of this drum. It hits on that ear. So when you're putting it back in, if you don't have that snap ring located correctly, you'll notice that it's not actually seated. This snap ring will pop out and it will give you problems. So make sure it's in there correctly. Get this other snap ring out. Clutch wise, these clutches really weren't in bad shape, so it's pretty surprising. Normally I would take the drum apart and talk about the Sonax piston that we're going to put in there, but we've covered that subject a whole bunch. So what I'm going to tell you is take your factory drum, such as this, and throw it in the trash, buy a new one, put the Sonax piston in it, you'll be fine. Last but not least, we're going to move on to the pump. Move this press out of our way and see if we can't get this thing apart. Get our stator body, move it out of the way. We'll actually be taking the bolts out of the stator tube later and pressing the stator tube out of the stator body. But I want to get this thing apart and show you guys the biggest condemning factor of 6L80s. One of the biggest things that we see in this shop is the amount of wear that you see there. The 6L80 converter and bearing issues that are plaguing the nation of Chevrolets right now is something that we see a metric ton of. If you are going to be doing this and you haven't already checked in on it, I recommend replacing the bell housing every time. We do repair some of our bell housings. We will take and put them on the lathe and cut the bell housings. Same thing with stator side. But the amount of wear inside of this pump pocket can be a huge ordeal. Reason that I'm moving all this out of here, I want to talk about one other thing that a guy asked me recently. Whenever you are replacing your bell housing and you are replacing your pump rotor, the surface height of that pump rotor is super critical. If you don't take the time and put a straight edge across and put a feeler gauge in between the pump rotor and the bell housing surface, you can actually create a bigger problem than what you started with. So checking of the height of that is super important. What I like to do is put a feeler gauge in between the pump rotor and a straight edge. This one we're not going to do that because this one's obviously garbage, but we'll go over that in the build video. So think that's about all of this 6L80. Thank you guys for watching as always, and like, share, subscribe. See you on the next one.